Hello, Assalamu alaikum, welcome. I decided to show up in front of you because I find that most of the people find difficulty in understanding the retranslation concept. They don't know what is retranslation, they don't know about the existing retranslation study. So I decided to show up and to tell you about the existence of retranslation study. Well, my name is M.Siddiqui from Delhi College University. So let's get started. As you know that in the translation field, the history of the translation has witnessed the conflicting debates over whether retranslation is necessary or not. So my aim is to calm the controversial issue by reflecting on the important issues with regard to retranslation. What's more, there will be relevant retranslation strategies that are generalized in my video. Retranslation phenomena springs up for a reason. It is the translator's obligation to justify it, regulate it, and thus avoid the chaos of retranslation. So let's come to the introduction about my topic. Retranslation is a frequently occurred phenomena that has been a controversial issue in the literary translation field. Issues regarding whether the retranslation is necessary or why retranslation activities never cease to spring up. Seems as it's simple on the surface. However, retranslation activities is not as simple as it appears to be. On the contrary, it is rather a very complicated issue. So, my video is mainly concerned with the retranslation and in particular with the proposal of the perspectives to reflect upon the phenomena of the retranslation. Moreover, my video is an attempt to emphasize the importance of considering, about the relevant issues of retranslation and the necessity for further in-depth study of the phenomena. Therefore, a brief introduction of existing retranslation study will be made. As a result, a clear picture from where our research is to proceed may be revealed. In order to set the scene for what is followed, we need to ask three relevant questions, which we believe lie at the root, or you can say they lie at the root of any attempt to understand the phenomena of retranslation, and if such is our goal, it will improve the work of the translator, of course. So, in consequence, in order to clarify the confusion of retranslation status and help us gain a better understanding towards retranslation phenomena in the following parts, we are going to respectively respond to three questions as follows. Is faithfulness to the original possible? The second question is, what are the characteristics of literary translation? And the third one, that does there exist the ideal translation in literary translation? So, undoubtedly, it is easy to figure out that these questions are fraught with ambiguity, and the answers to them, not surprisingly, are far from the satisfactory. On top of this, we are to the center on the discussion of any theme of retranslation, which will recur in different guises through the paper, although we probably may not mention it directly. Okay, so let's come to the delimitation of the retranslation. So, in this part of the video, before we explore into these questions, it is extremely necessary for us to clarify the ideas brought. So, as you know that I will quote the CAT4, that defines a translation that the replacement of textual material in one language by equivalent texture or textual material in another language. Then CAT4, further argues as what follows. By equivalent textual material in another language, it follows that the central problem of translation practice is that of finding TIA, translation equivalence. A central task of translation theory is that of defining the nature of the translation equivalence. Needless to say, CAT4 stresses that the essential thing of translation is to seek for TL translation equivalence, which of course is highly advocated by most translation scholars of translation field. However, Finlay expresses his viewpoints of what makes a translation in quite a different way. Finlay contends that a translation must be defined as a presentation of text in a language other than that in which it was originally written. So, now let's come to the perspectives on retranslation. The first question, is faithfulness to the original possible? Ever since human beings were first engaged in the act of translation, debates on what should be done in translation began. However, different interpretation may be at the first sight. The debates basically center on one issue: whether a translation is faithful to the original or not. As to the puzzle, Theodore generalizes a list of various representative views towards translation in the art of translation as follows. The first one, a translation must give the words of the original. A translation must give the ideas of the original. It must and it should read like an original work. It should read like a translation. It should reflect the style of the original. It should possess the style of the translation. It should read as the contemporary of the original. It should read as a contemporary of the translation. It may add or omit from the original. Further, a translation may never add or omit from the original. So, the further he explains that a translation of verse should be in prose. A translation of verse should be in verse. From the views listed above, we may realize that a diametrical principle reveals the translator's dilemma. They are confronted with the options, regardless of how hard they are. Okay, we trace back to the history of the translation theory. We may notice that three laws of translation, which, the Alexander, I forgot the name. The name was Alexander. I think it's Alexander Dittler. So he formulates in his essay on the principle of translation as follows. It says that the translation should give a complete transcript of the ideas of the original work. He further says that the style and the manner of the writing should be of the same character with that of the original. That the translation should have all the ease of the original composition. And explaining to all these rules, that Alexander emphasizes as such that it is indispensable necessary that he should have a perfect knowledge of the original and a competent acquaintance with the subject of which it treats. Furthermore, if we explore deeper into the roots of the issue of what the translator should do and the laws of translation, and we may say that would all focus on one issue: is faithfulness to the original possible? Dryden compares translation to dancing on the rope with foddered legs. And a long time ago, we have the old axiom. So, let's come forward. There was a second question. What are the characteristics of literary translation? Literary translator writes, Finlay, that translators of all type of fiction cover such categories as novels, plays, poetry, film, and the like, as well as in many cases, biographies and travel books and similar, basically non-technical type of non-fiction. So that was, some characteristics of, retranslation. So, there's a third question, that does there exist the ideal translation in literary translation? The ideal translation. So, with the development of the economy, translation activities reach a climax. In the 20th century, the so-called age of translation. Many famous foreign literary works are to be translated over and over again. On the other hand, the boom of retranslation action means the prosperity of the translation. On the other hand, this kind of concentrated retranslation activities has brought about quite a number of problems. As a result, translation scholars are deeply concerned about this issue and they carry out the debates over translations. So that is a major problem. So according to the viewpoints of the Zhujian, he was a scientist, the so-called ideal translation. He must contain three levels of connotation. First, an ideal translation must achieve its perfection both in understanding and expression, without any mistakes in understanding and any blank in interruption. Not only it can be equivalent to text in the content, but also it can rival with the text in form. According, three remains no possible and necessity of the retranslation. Secondly, the ideal, you can say the ideal translation also has the meaning of being immoral and to speak. It can last beyond time and space. So thirdly, the ideal translation also includes the meaning of the perfect model. From my viewpoints, when confronted with the text, it is natural that the different translators may have different understandings and expressions for the text. Therefore, different translations regarding the same text seem to be reasonable. Therefore, it is reasonable to make deductions that the activities of the translations are justified and reasonable. Now, let's come to another point. The relevant retranslation strategies. What are the strategies? In this part of the video, the author, like me, I tend to briefly introduce relevant retranslation strategies so as to broaden the translator's horizon in understanding what underlies retranslation. According to four strategies with regard to translation are to be generalized, among which one strategy is put forward by the author. These strategies run as follows. The first one is corrective translation. It refers to the translation of a work already existing in a bad or faulty translation in order to provide a target language receptor with more faithful reproduction of the original. Critical translation. Critical translation, it offers to the translation of a literary work already extant at a translation free of errors and acceptable in order to shed new, interpretational light on the original work. Then there's proselyting translation. It refers to the retranslation of a work of already existing in an acceptable form in the target language with the intent of emphasizing its special meaning for a particular well-defined group of receptors via an interruption of the text according to the customs. Non-conceptual translation. This strategy put forward, the author refers to the retranslation of a work already existing in an acceptable form in the target language. So that's all. Now, as a whole, let's come to the conclusion. As the readers, as I am the reader, we perceive a something. And we then try to interpret this thing, to understand it. But the whole process is a relative one. Perfect understanding, like perfect clarity, is a relative idea, since the perfect understanding is just a relative idea. And ideal translation is also relative. Okay? So, the characteristics that the literary translation possesses, determines the ideal translation, and it does not exist in the literary translation. The constant retranslation reoccurs for a reason. And different retranslation strategies lead to retranslations for different purposes, which has become a consensus shared by the most translators. However, we may find from the above content of the video, of the discussion, my discussion, that only proceeds from the level of language. Okay, which obviously lacks a deeper exploration into the retranslation. This is always been the case with the existing retranslation study. So that is all. And for the references, if you need references, you can contact me, and my address will be given in the video. Thank you so much.